Hello. This movie is presented by Golden Minutes. Movie's name: Rise. Director: Akin Omatoso. Casts: Yedid Badaki, Raul Agada, Deo Okini, Panos Karunis, Akin Omatoso. Genre: drama, sports, biography. Product: 2022 USA. Movie's story: Nigeria, Lagos, 1990. Vera and Charles left their baby, Francis, to her grandmother and they go on a long journey. Istanbul, 1991. They finally enter Turkey and stay in Istanbul for a while with the intention of traveling to Greece. In one of the heartwarming nights, the immigration police enter the building of illegal immigrants and arrest them all. With the voice of the agents, Vera and Charles skillfully arrange the room and leave the building after the agent leaves the room. The next day they go to the terminal and board the Greek bus and finally arrive in Europe with great anxiety. Years later, Vera with her second son, Thanasis, Rodomai, goes to the bazaar to help his husband with living expenses by hand selling. In the middle of the day, she feels pain and leaves Thanasis to a neighbor and goes to the hospital alone by bus. Yanis, Hugo in Igbo means crown, is also born safely. Upon handing over the baby, the nurse asks Vera for more information, and she refuses to file a case with detailed information. She dodges by citing the absence of a residence card. A few nights later, Charles returns home from a business trip and is overjoyed to see their new baby. He introduces Yanis as a friend and constant companion of Thanasis and asks him to always stay with his brother. Sometime later, Charles and Vera go to the immigration office with documents in their hands. They meet Miss Pantatsis. While mispronouncing Charles's family name as Antetokounmpo, meaning the king's return from across the sea, he schemes the evidence and then dismisses the evidence. Because Charles's job isn't a permanent job and it's not enough to get residency. Years pass and the Charles family still fails to obtain legal residency. However, Alex and Costas are also added to their family. In the midst of this secret life, they often run away from the police and sometimes abandon and lose their belongings to save themselves. Vera continues to help Charles with living expenses. They take turns staying with their children and taking care of them. Days pass and children grow older. On a hot day in 2007, Charles, as usual, took the boys to the soccer field to have fun. At the same time, Yanis and Thanasis go to the nearby basketball court and accidentally enter the game with the players. Afterward, Charles calls the boys back home, where one of the players invites the boys to join the Philatelico Club, which is free. Everyone returns home together. Yanis and Thanasis watch videos of famous basketball players and enjoy their game. After that, together with the mother, they recite the prayer before going to sleep. As the mother leaves the room, Tanu and Yanni decide to go to Philatelico without their parents' knowledge. The next day, two brothers go to the club. Along the way, they see some people protesting the presence of immigrants in the country. The protesters demanded the departure of the immigrants and the unity of their national team. They attack the bus, even seeing Tanu and Yanni. Finally, with great difficulty in a long journey, they reach Philatelico. At the club, while the coach is unhappy with the team's performance, he meets the Antetokounmpo brothers. He is happy to see the two tall brothers, but first he asks them about their parents' consent. The boys falsely pretend to have come to the club with their mother, thus gaining permission to play for the day. They enter the team. They start by throwing in the net. Thanasis is doing better and Yanis is having a bit of trouble bending his arm to throw. After that, the players play in two teams facing each other. Takis monitors the brothers moment by moment and seems satisfied with their performance. At night, Thanasis explains to his parents about playing in Philatelico and asks his parents for permission to provide the conditions for playing in the club by signing consent forms. Regardless of Tanu's explanation, Charles confronts him and scolds him for disobeying the family rules and staying away from home for a long time. Both boys go to the room disappointed. Vera tries to dissuade Charles from worrying about this and convince him to allow the boys. In the end, Veronica succeeds and Tanu and Yanni reach their goal. They go to the gym every day after school and follow the exercises diligently. Meanwhile, Thanasis is getting better every day than yesterday. But Yanis' game is awful in terms of the coach. Of course, Tanu, as always, remains the brother's helper and supporter and gives him hope for the improvement of the situation and success. At home, Vera tries to make a video call with Francis. Seeing her eldest son, she sheds tears and expresses her longing for years away. Charles continues to look for work in the newspaper and in the surrounding neighborhoods, and he gets nothing except temporary jobs. On the other hand, Vera also helps her husband with living expenses by nursing the elderly. Some time passes and Yanis watches more and does theoretical studies more carefully, on the advice of the coach. Vera writes the monthly expenses of the house and is faced with a severe lack of funds, which worries her greatly. Sometime later, Yanis gets permission to enter the team. Thanasis gives his underwear to his brother and is mocked by the rest of the players. But Thanasis perseveres, asking Yanis to show everyone that he is better than them with his progress. A few days later, Charles goes to the club and watches the boys play. Tekis informs the father about the offers of various clubs for the contract with Thanasis. Even he promises Charles that it's possible to recruit Tanu by the national team. Of course, Charles is happy about the progress of his sons, but he expresses his concern about the family's information being leaked to the immigration office in this way. A few days later, Panarius, one of the third-level clubs, gives Thanasis a check for the advance payment of the contract, and he gives the check to his parents to help his family. Charles and Vera are very happy with Thanasis' performance. Charles introduces him as a role model for all his sons and Tanu sees his success as the success of the whole family. The next day, Charles and his family go to the mall and prepare themselves for shopping. Then they go to the bank to cash the check. But the check is invalid and money isn't given to them. Distraught, Charles calls Takis and explains what happened. Takis also explains that Panarios withdrew his offer after knowing of Antetokounmpo's illegal stay. On hearing this news, Thanasis gets sad and goes to his room. Yanis gives him hope that they will survive against these hardships as always. An hour later, while everyone is sleeping, Yanis goes to the kitchen. His mother notices his presence and comes to him. Yanis also asks about Francis. Vera explains that sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the advancement of the family, and in order to have a better life, she left Francis with her grandmother and migrated to Athens with Charles, and it was planned to bring Francis to Greece as soon as they settled. But the unsolved problems of residents and their precarious financial situation closed the doors for them to return or stay with Francis. The next day, the father buys 2 pairs of Nike sneakers for his sons with his salary. Tan and Yanni happily put on the shoes and train in the same rainy weather. Sometime later, Charles goes to the immigration office and meets Ms. Pantatzis with documents containing a permanent job and even social security payments for him from his employer. Pantatzis rejects the documents this time as well, because Charles doesn't have the skills to work as a janitor and doesn't consider this job suitable for receiving residency. Charles knows that the Greek government has no intention of granting them legal residency. A few days later, a competition will be held and Yanis will be in the team. But it shows incorrect performance. Therefore, the player of the opposite team insults him with the word, black, and describes his game as awful. Yanis is deeply affected and after the game, he asks his father why the Greeks hate him. Charles attributes this behavior to ignorant racists and instead expresses his gratitude for receiving free education for children, creating jobs and housing from this country. 2011 comes and Yanis has grown enough. Charles's landlord comes to the house and demands the monthly rent. Vera gives him an amount of 2 weeks, but he isn't satisfied and threatens to evict Vera. The next day, Charles comes to Vera with a new car. Vera gets angry with her husband for this extravagance and reminds him of the arrears of rent. Charles also explains to Vera that they can spend the weekend by the beach and sell their stuff and pay the rent with the proceeds. With this explanation, Vera is satisfied. During the week, another match will be held with a brighter presence of Yanis. Midway through the game, as both brothers shine and Thanasis leads the pack, Paco watches over the brothers. Harris Alfrio, who is also delighted with their talent, tries to convince Paco to sign the Antetokounmpo brothers. In the meantime, the attacker of the opposite team hits Thanasis' leg. Therefore, the older brother is banned from the game. He uses this opportunity and asks Yanis to reveal his talent. Yanis goes forward with all his strength and manages the game well. In the end, the team wins with great goals and even better assists by Yanis. After the game, despite the fact that he enjoyed the brothers' game, Paco refuses to support them. Because without legal residence, they will probably be removed from the team and sent back to their country. But Harris tries to get in touch with Antetokounmpo's family. First, he introduces himself as a talent scout of the Premier League and considers Paco an influential talent scout who has the ability to guarantee a player in his selection with one call. After that, Vera asks Harris to take on the task himself. Harris also offers to be Yanis' program manager so he can take the next steps to find the team. Charles discusses the issue with the whole family. Finally, Yanis accepts and Harris pursues his first player plans. The weekend comes and Charles and his family go to the beach and sell all their belongings. They return home at night, but they can't enter. Bam Idol seems to have changed the locks. The family is forced to sleep in the car and Charles ends the night with grief. The next morning, Charles gives Bamadil the back rent and even the next month's rent and receives the key. Harris also comes to Charles's house and says with disappointment about the results of his pursuits, no team is willing to sign a contract with a non-citizen. But there's another way to see the talent of the brothers, and that's to participate in the European regional test. Considering his situation, Thanasis doesn't consider himself suitable for this registration. But he wants Yanis to succeed in this test. Charles also risks being exposed and arrested by the police so Yanni can show his talent. The FIBA regional exam will be held, 2013. Yanis enters the hall and after the prayer, the game begins. During the game, Yanis doesn't go well. At the beginning of the last set, Charles leaves the hall. He helps his son with many prayers. Finally, Tanu comes to his father with good news. After the game, Harris also comes to the family with good news. The Spanish Zaragoza team is ready to take Yanis to Spain and include him in their team by issuing a Spanish visa. But Yanis agrees to sign the contract only by issuing visas to all family members. Harris decides to negotiate more with Zaragoza. The next day, while the whole family is waiting to hear from Harris, Paco comes to their house with a tempting offer. He asks Yanis to sign a contract with him by offering €5,000 as an advance payment and issuing residence cards for the whole family. Paco also pushes Harris aside and pushes him to the sidelines. The family goes to the room to consult. Charles agrees to the offer. But Yanis and Vera consider this to be against humanity and oppose the ingratitude and abandonment of Harris. Therefore, they inform Paco of their decision. Paco leaves the house threatening to send the family back to Nigeria. Meanwhile, Harris happily approaches. Yanis thinks that Zaragoza has also accepted his family. But Harris considers this team determined for its decision. On the other hand, he explains the main good news: Yanis will participate in the selection ceremony of NBA players. He continues that Yanis will be allowed to participate in this ceremony, provided he signs a contract with Zaragoza, which is an international team. Therefore, the film has sent Yanis acting to one of America's program managers, and he hopes that Yanis will be chosen in this ceremony. In fact, with Yanis being accepted, the whole family will receive American visas. The family accepts the offer, worried that Yanis will not be accepted and thus move to Spain without his family. Harris spends several weeks to issue visas for Yanis and Thanasis. Finally, the visa is issued and the promised day arrives. Yanis promises the mother that he will gather all the family members together. A few hours later, they arrive at the New York airport and are greeted by Kevin. Yanni and Tanu watch and enjoy the beauty and splendor of the streets of New York. After that, they stay at the Westin Hotel. Harris asks the boys to take a short break and get ready to meet with Nike. Yanni is excited and Harris explains that the company is willing to sign a contract with him and pay him for using their linens. So they show up for an appointment with a Nike representative. The representative asks Yanni about his advantage over the other players, and he explains that he once played in the same underwear as his brother. At the same time, he has seen the poverty of his family and the efforts of his parents, and now he is ready to put in a lot of effort to compensate for their hardships. A Nike representative is impressed, but postpones the decision until after the NBA draft. After that, Kevin tries to negotiate with the representatives of NBA teams and show Yanni's talents to everyone. Among them all, Milwaukee enjoys the interview with Yanis, calling him a genius, but expressing concern about his lack of legal credentials. Finally, the player selection ceremony begins and David Stern, the president of the National Basketball Association, goes to Roy Sen and reads the selection list while greeting. All friends and acquaintances of Yanis are waiting to see his success on TV. The selections are read one by one and until number 14, the name of Yanis isn't mentioned. With only one player left, Yanis and Tanu start praying. Then, in disbelief, the Milwaukee representative arrives with an envelope and announces Yanis' name. The following year, all Yanis family members moved to America. Yanis launched his own line of shoes called Zoom Free. Thanasis also joined the New York Knicks in 2014. Francis joined the family after 25 years of separation. Charles died in 2017, 2 years before Yanis received basketball's Most Valuable award. In his memory, his family established a charity foundation in Nigeria and Greece. Kostas was accepted into the NBA in 2018. Alexandros also joined the NBA. Thanks for watching Golden Minutes. For more recapped movies, please subscribe the channel and turn on the notification.